On this Monday night, an exciting double dose of Olympic gold. The two Canadian women who won their events at the Paris Games, their journeys to the top of the podium. Horror in England.
It was like a bomb had gone off.
The children killed in a stabbing spree at a community center and the teenager charged. Intercepted and inspected.
These are crime scenes.
A Global News exclusive inside a secret warehouse where officers stop stolen cars from leaving Canada. Plus, wildlife and wildfires, how animals in Alberta are adapting.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Nitu Garcha.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. It is an exciting time at the Paris Summer Olympics right now, especially for Team Canada, which took the top podium in two events today. Christa Deguchi made history as the first ever Canadian Olympic gold medalist in judo. And in swimming, after nabbing Canada's first medal in Paris this past weekend, Summer McIntosh won the gold for the 400-meter individual medley. And as Mackenzie Gray reports, that's just scratching the surface of Canadian athletic achievement at the Games so far.
The Summer of Summer is officially underway. 17-year-old Summer McIntosh smashing the field by nearly 6 seconds in the women's 400-meter individual medley. McIntosh's second medal of the Games, and her family, including her former Olympian mother, traveled in from Toronto to see the victory. Calm when she got her gold, but frantically cheering on their daughter like millions of Canadians during the race, which was Canada's second gold of the day. From missing out on the last Olympics to the top of the podium, Christa Deguchi has had a wild ride to become an Olympic champion, needing sudden death to win in both the semis and finals of the women's 57-kilogram judo. Born and raised in Japan, Deguchi switched to the Canadian team, her father's home country, in 2017, after being unable to break through on the Japanese team.
I'm part of the history, right? I'm surprised with that, and I'm very honored to be the part of Canada. I want to have a rest and drink a beer and have fun.
Canada's best day so far added to with Rylan Weens and Nathan Zambor-Murray taking home bronze in the 10-meter synchro dive, Canada's first ever medal in the sport.
It's amazing to have the support that we have back home, and it's overwhelming to see the amount of people there are on our side.
Summer McIntosh's run at the Olympics is just getting started. With 4 more races to go, she could leave Paris as one of Canada's most decorated athletes, Neetu, including with a potential gold in the 200-meter butterfly, where she's currently the fastest woman in the world.
Incredible. Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks, Mackenzie. With 2 golds out of 5 medals so far, Canada ranks 9th at the Games right now. Japan is at the top with 6 gold medals, followed by France and China. There are new developments in the Canada soccer spying scandal. The governing body and the Canadian Olympic Committee have filed an appeal to a special Olympic court, hoping to remove or reduce FIFA's 6-point penalty on the women's team in the Olympic tournament. But they will not appeal FIFA's suspension for the 3 head coaches involved in spying on New Zealand's team with a drone. A decision is expected on Wednesday. One athlete is pushing back against the backlash from the scandal. Speaking to the CBC, soccer player Vanessa Gilles says, "We're not cheaters. We're damn good players. We're a damn good team, and we prove that." The famous Seine River in Paris is still not cooperating with the Games. Athletes are set to swim in it as part of triathlon events this week, but practice runs were canceled again today. Crystal Goomansingh explains why.
Let's go.
Olympic officials and athletes might be worried about diving into the Seine, but these locals are more relaxed.
It depends on the area.
So you're a little further away from sort of the city center, so it's
yes.
a little
It's not the most hygienic thing to do, but we do it for fun, so.
Poor water quality has meant 2 days of practice swims were canceled, and the triathlon may not go ahead as planned. 2 Canadians, Charles Paquette and Tyler Maslawchuk, are set to line up on a floating dock and dive in Tuesday morning. Emmy Legault is racing in the women's event Wednesday. Up until recently, swimming in the Seine had been illegal for the last 100 years. Paris 2024 officials are holding off on making any decisions. They say they have a special tool called a call-minder, and right now it is suggesting that the water quality is going in the right direction. But there is a possibility they'll either have to delay the event or even cancel the swimming portion of the triathlon.
We're confident that we will be able to hold, even though we cancelled the familiarization this morning, and we still have a contingency plan that is in place for Friday, just in case.
A pre-dawn decision will be made on race day. In a statement, Phil Dunn said, "We do have full confidence in World Triathlon and Paris 2024 mitigation plans to prioritize the health and safety of our athletes." France invested more than $1 billion in wastewater infrastructure to cut the amount of sewage flowing into the river, but several days of heavy rain saw water quality deteriorate. Back in the suburbs, under the blazing sun, the water was too appealing to pass up. These guys have no issue jumping in, but suggest washing afterwards. Crystal Goomansingh, Global News, Paris.
Pressure is piling on France to ramp up security of the Olympics after vandals struck again. This time they cut fiber lines, disrupting phone networks. The sabotage affected 11,000 people. Back on Friday, on the first day of the Olympic Games, vandals targeted France's national rail service, causing chaos for 800,000 travelers before the opening ceremony. French media is reporting that a far-left activist has been arrested in connection with that attack. In the UK, at least 2 children are dead and 11 other people are injured after a mass stabbing at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class. The horrifying scenes played out in northwestern England in the seaside town of Southport. Police say a teenage suspect has been arrested, and there are fears the death toll could climb. Redmond Shannon reports, and a warning: some of the details are disturbing.
One witness called it like a scene from a horror movie, a stabbing attack inside a community space that often hosts pregnancy and antenatal classes. On Monday morning, it welcomed young children to a Taylor Swift-themed dance and yoga class.
The offender, armed with a knife, walked into the premises and started to attack inside the children.
Emergency calls triggered a huge police and paramedic response.
When they arrived, they were shocked to find that multiple people, many of whom were children, had been subjected to a ferocious attack and had suffered serious injuries.
Officers arrested a 17-year-old who they say lives locally but is originally from Wales.
It was like a bomb had gone off. Girls' bodies all over the place. Just all street members looking after the girls while they were bleeding to death, basically. There was a few parents around. I've heard wailing and screaming pretty much all afternoon.
Victims were flown to hospitals in Liverpool and Manchester. 2 of the children died. 9 more were injured, 6 of them critically.
I know the whole country is deeply shocked at what they've seen and what they've heard.
2 adults were also critically injured.
We believe that the adults who were injured were bravely trying to protect the children who were being attacked.
Police say they are investigating the motive, but they say they do not believe it to be what they call terror-related. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Back in this country, the federal environment minister has confirmed that all fires inside the town site of Jasper are now out. The broader wildfire remains a threat, though, and with fire conditions expected to worsen this week, there was an emotional boost today. Some 200 firefighters and support staff from South Africa arrived in Edmonton. As per tradition, they sang South African songs and danced upon arrival. Heather Urex West looks at what crews are set to face this week and how wildlife are already showing signs of resilience.
With Jasper National Park evacuated, the wildlife are making themselves at home. Having survived the fire's worst last week by hiding out along the Athabasca River, a grizzly and her 2 cubs are now enjoying the quieted community.
The effects of fire can be quite variable on wildlife. So some populations of species tend to react negatively or respond negatively to wildfire. Others don't show any sort of changes, and others actually benefit from fire.
Though that benefit, Leah says, can turn to harm if intense fire is able to come back to an area again and again. And after several days of rain and cool temperatures in Jasper, fire crews are bracing for a second round.
From Tuesday onward, we're looking at some very hot dry conditions. On Wednesday, we could see those southwesterly winds picking up just a little bit, but it doesn't take much. And then once we get to the end of the week and into the long weekend, temperatures are back into the 30s.
It took just 2 days from ignition for the Jasper wildfire complex to become the raging inferno that destroyed part of this much-loved mountain town.
The simple fact is that sometimes there are no tools or resources capable of overcoming a wildfire of the magnitude that we faced this week.
The head of Parks Canada says thanks to regular controlled burns and extensive planning, Jasper was well prepared, if not the most prepared community in Canada to face a fire's threat.
The problem was not for lack of coordination or resources, but because they were facing a raging inferno that defied conventional firefighting tools.
Every prevention effort, it seems, no match for the drought, heat and wind. Severe weather that appears to be on its way back again. Heather Urex West, Global News, Calgary.
South of the border, cooler weather has helped fire crews gain a bit of ground on California's enormous Park Fire. It is now 12% contained. It's the state's largest wildfire this year and the 6th largest in its history. In just 5 days, it has scorched an area larger than Los Angeles and has destroyed more than 100 structures. Venezuela's presidential standoff. Coming up, the calls for transparency as both sides claim victory in a crucial election. Thousands of Venezuelans protested across the country tonight, accusing Nicolas Maduro of attempting to steal the disputed presidential election after both he and his chief challenger, Edmundo Gonzalez, claimed victory. Protests in some cities turned confrontational, with police using tear gas against demonstrators. Not all the votes have been tallied up yet. Jackson Prosco explains the doubts, including Canada's, surrounding the results and how millions of people have fled Venezuela because of Maduro, who's now claiming another term in office.
Constitucional, legal.
The results were announced by an election council stacked with loyalists, giving Nicolas Maduro Venezuela's presidency for a third 6-year term. Referencing Donald Trump's refusal to concede in 2020, Maduro has demanded respect for the vote. But there are serious concerns about his legitimacy. Some polling stations refuse to release paper copies of electronic counts. There are widespread claims of voter intimidation. The results vary wildly from the polls.
More than 80% of Venezuelan registered voters wanted a change of policy, and more than 60% wanted a change of government.
Opposition leader Maria Corina Machado had been banned from running. Her proxy, Edmundo Gonzalez, claimed tally showed him ahead by 40 points. He called the vote a violation of all the rules. On the streets of Caracas, many decried the elections as a sham. I am sad because we lost hope for a better Venezuela, says this voter. Under Maduro, more than 7.7 million people have fled the country. Poverty is rampant, even as the country sits on some of the largest oil reserves in the world. Maduro has friends in Russia, China, and Cuba. The rest of the world is demanding transparency around his claims of re-election.
Canada has serious concerns about the election in Venezuela.
We have serious concerns that the result announced does not reflect the will or the votes of the Venezuelan people.
As calls for independent verification of the vote grow louder, Venezuela is headed down a familiar path of isolation and repression, with the military and police still firmly on Maduro's side. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
Advanced analytics ahead, how Canadian authorities are using data to curb auto theft. Ontario is pledging more than $130 million to help put the brakes on that province's sky-high auto theft problem. Premier Doug Ford says the money will be spent on 5 police helicopters in the Greater Toronto Area and Ottawa as part of a new joint air support unit.
We know we have more work to do. Here in Ontario, a car is stolen every 14 minutes. There's nowhere in North America that have those stats.
Ford says the helicopters will not only help officials target thefts, but also street racing and impaired driving. He's also pushing the feds to do more to deter thieves with harsher punishments. New data shows auto theft is on the decline in Canada this year, following record highs in 2022 and 2023. Tonight, we have exclusive access to one of the ways Canada seems to be succeeding in this fight. Our chief investigative correspondent, Carolyn Jarvis, takes us to Montreal, where new data analytics are playing a crucial role on the front line of this country's battle against auto crime.
The fast-moving current of auto theft in our country flows to the Port of Montreal, a 26-kilometer strip fortified with 600 cameras, multi-level security including fingerprint access and ID clearance. And yet it's estimated thousands of stolen cars exited this port undetected last year.
These trucks that are coming in, how quick is the turnaround?
Less than 40 minutes.
40 minutes?
Yeah.
Wow.
The goal is not to store containers, it's to get them in and out as quickly as possible.
We're just a transit area. We try to keep it as 2 days.
Which means if officers want to intercept, they need to act with speed and precision. And any suspicious container has to be moved here, to an examination center run by the Canada Border Services Agency that few even know exists. This is the first time cameras have been allowed inside in a decade.
These are crime scenes. These are evidence of crimes.
On this morning, officers break the seal of a suspect container and pry it open. Inside is a Toyota Highlander. And behind it, a Range Rover. Officers inspect the vehicle and validate the VIN or vehicle identification number and determine both were stolen from the Toronto area. This container was flagged by the CBSA because of a shift in how it's doing enforcement, moving from police tips to data-driven targeting.
Now in the Port of Montreal, in December, probably 100% of the containers we opened were based on referrals from police. Now it's 50-50, so we're doing our targeting.
Back in February, ahead of the National Auto Theft Summit, the federal government announced $28 million for the CBSA. Today, some of that is being used for advanced data analytics.
We look for anomalies, so not only can we target the container, but start identifying patterns in terms of where that container came from, who shipped it.
That tracking is happening far from the port, at the National Targeting Center in Ottawa, a facility with 400 employees operating around the clock.
We're quite sophisticated when it comes to targeting cargo coming into the country. We're now applying those same tools and discipline to cargo leaving the country.
The new funds also purchased a second X-ray scanner, this one for the Toronto area. Still, it can only inspect 10 containers an hour.
The real key is using our intelligence. We don't want to scan every straw. We want to find the needles in the haystack.
Early indications are this new approach is working. Just over halfway into 2024, the CBSA has already intercepted 1,400 stolen vehicles, on pace to far exceed last year. An undertow in the endless waves of car thefts. Carolyn Jarvis, Global News, Montreal.
Love of the game. Next, how a Canadian basketball star prepared for her final Olympic Games. It was a tough Olympic start for members of Canada's women's basketball team who lost their opening match to host country France. But hopes are still high. The team will earn an Olympic medal for the first time in Canada's history. Their next match is against Australia on Thursday. The team is led by Captain Natalie Achonwa. The 31-year-old from Toronto is one of Canada's longest tenured veterans. She's competing in her fourth and final Olympics. Before the Games began, Mike Armstrong spoke with Achonwa on what the sport means to her.
Tierra to post up, but Natalie Achonwa. There is something strange in hearing Natalie Achonwa describe her passion for her sport. She says people at first tend not to believe her.
On offense, here's a charging Achonwa with the lay-in and the foul.
I really don't love
basketball as in like the game of putting the ball in the hoop. I love that there's so much that comes from basketball.
Achonwa has been part of Canada's national team for 16 years. Prior to that, she was captain in college at Notre Dame and has spent 10 years in the WNBA. What the game's given her, she says, are experiences and relationships she knows she's lucky to have had and wants others to live.
I know that I'm building an opportunity for those that are going to come after me. And that's a huge, big part of my why. And why I do this is the next generation.
Now, building women's basketball means challenges the men's game doesn't have, like maternity leave. Achonwa gave birth last year to a son, Maverick. She's had serious injuries in the past. This was very different in many ways, but not all.
It's crazy. Like, for me, like, language matters. So I don't like to put injury and pregnancy in the same category, but at the same time, like, recovery is recovery.
Now, coming back was a challenge, but also, she says, a blessing. Tough days on or off the court are now easier to cope with, knowing she has Maverick at home.
Anytime I'm in the mud or I'm in the thick of it, I'm like, look at this beautiful thing I made, so.
For these, her fourth Olympics, her focus on the game has changed. She's trying to enjoy the process more, the practices and the preparation. A medal is the goal, but there's more this time.
It's my last one, so enjoy it.
Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
What a powerful perspective. That is Global National for this Monday night. I'm Neetu Garcha. Tonight's Your Canada is Osoyoos Lake, British Columbia. Thanks so much for watching. Donna will be back with you tomorrow. Have a great night.